first runners in the Devolution Warrior Award Tie Award category for its consistency in providing comprehensive, objective, accurate and focused coverage on devolution in Kenya.
And Azimio leader Raila Odinga is expected to be the guest speaker during the 8th Devolution Conference, which enters its third day today.
German government approves a draft law legalizing the purchase and possession of cannabis for recreational use. The bill still needs to be approved by lawmakers in the German parliament.
A very good morning to you and welcome to the Morning Cafe. I trust that your night was fantastic and welcome to this particular place that we serve you hot coffee. I'm yours truly, Stanley Nyerungita.
Wow, what a beautiful morning, and congratulations to Cape Media Limited for winning that award. And of course, you can trust us to give you the most accurate and balanced, impartial news a day in, a day out. Once again, cheers to Cape Media. Good morning and welcome to Morning Cafe. This 18th day of August 2023. It's pleasure to have you right here. 17th, I'm told, sorry, 17th.
You're rushing time. You're really rushing. I can see you're waiting for Friday.
Absolutely. It is the 17th day of August 2023. And welcome to Morning Cafe. We do have a great show lined up for you. And of course, as Devolution enters day 2, definitely that live coverage coming to you all the way from Eldoret, and TV47 is a place to be for all those updates. I'm Flora Limuki. And top story this morning, Uasin Gishu Senator Jackson Mandago is set to be arraigned in court this morning after spending a night in police custody in Nakuru Police Station. Mandago was arrested in Eldoret and thereafter taken to Nakuru for questioning. However, taking to his social media platforms, the senator had earlier refuted reports of a warrant of arrest issued against him by police, adding that he was not in hiding. The senator is linked to the Finland scholarship scandal, which has been the conversation for the last few days after parents and students called out the leaders of Uasin Gishu County for allegedly conspiring to steal more than 1.1 billion shillings from an account domiciled at the KCB Bank in Eldoret, registered under the Uasin Gishu Education Trust Fund, meant for overseas university fees for students under Uasin Gishu County overseas education programs. Mandago served as the first governor of Uasin Gishu County and later sought for the senatorial seat in last year's general election. The Senate is mandated with determining the allocation of national revenue among counties as provided in Article 217, and exercises oversight of a national revenue allocated to the county government. It also participates in the oversight of state officers by considering and determining any resolution to remove the president or deputy president from office in accordance with Article 145 of the Constitution. Now, this push and pull has resulted to nominated Senator Raphael Chimera of Kwale County to propose a bill seeking to bar governors who have completed their terms from being eligible to vie as a senator or MP for the next 5 years after serving their full term. And therefore, with that top story this morning, it forms the basis of our question today as we ask you, do you support the proposal to bar former governors from seeking for senatorial seats or MP seats? We ask you, do you support the proposal to bar former governors from seeking for senatorial seats or MP seats? At TV47 News on X, at TV47 Kenya on Facebook. The hashtag is Morning Cafe, and at Limuki_F at Nyerungita_. The SMS line 22047.
And Now to our day's diary, and first off is matters devolution. And today we expect to see Azimio leader Raila Odinga, who will be the guest speaker in the second day of the 8th Devolution Conference in Eldoret Sports Club, Uasin Gishu County. And away from that is ICT CS Eli Dualo and Health Cabinet Secretary Susan Nakumiche will launch Wi-Fi hotspots in parts of Trans Nzoia County, including Kiminini Town, Sihendu Market and Kitale Town. And in matters politics, Parliament anchors in law the National Dialogue Committee co-chaired by National Assembly Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah and Wiper Leader Kalonzo Musyoka. And also today, in matters celebrating Independence Days, it is this day marks the establishment of an independent country for Gabon. After more than a century, Gabon claimed its liberation from France. And also Indonesia will celebrate its 78th independence today after declaring its independence from Dutch colonial rule in 1945. The main ceremony will occur at the Merdeka Palace in Jakarta.
Well, time now to look at the dailies this morning. I do have the Daily Nation here as well as the Standard. Perhaps we start with the Standard, the Daily Nation this morning. And the headline there.
Literally spoiled for choice.
Absolutely. Because they have very juicy headlines, all of them. And on the headline for the Daily Nation this morning, how cash was moved, probe exposes money trail. This is concerning our top story this morning. Finland airlift saga bites Mandago heist. Nation obtains documents showing how officials withdrew 203 million shillings for personal use from bank accounts into which parents had paid fees for their children to study in Finland and Canada, and a program run by Uasin Gishu County during the reign of Jackson Mandago. And in numbers there, 1.1 billion shillings is the amount state prosecutors allege the suspects conspired to steal from the overseas study program. Of course, the Uasin Gishu senator, they expected to be arraigned in court this morning. He spent the night at Nakuru police station. Matters devolution there, President William Ruto was speaking during the devolution conference yesterday as he officially opened the 8th Devolution Conference. He has warned against looting of public funds. As the Devolution Conference marks the 10th anniversary to counties opened yesterday in Eldoret, President William Ruto challenged governors to stop wastage of public resources, vowing it would no longer be business as usual and the corrupt would be punished. That story is on page 4, 5, 6 and 7 of the Daily Nation this morning. And opposition leader Raila Odinga is a guest speaker today on the second day of the Devolution Conference, where participants drawn from the public and private sector as well as development agencies are discussing transformation from the grassroots and how county government can drive the economic renaissance. There, Azimio leader Raila Odinga, they are expected to speak at the Devolution Conference today. On the lower strip of the Daily Nation this morning, lawyers to snitch on clients with dirty cash, nowhere to hide. The Financial Reporting Center and Law Society of Kenya have struck a deal for lawyers to report ill-gotten money held by their clients. What an interesting story there. You can find it on page 3 of the Daily Nation this morning. Some matters politics. MPs a seal of approval for Ruto-Raila talks. Rival factions closed ranks yesterday to pass a motion in the National Assembly to give legal backing to the dialogue between the government and the opposition. More pain as a new tax proposal for state contracts. The Treasury now wants a bill enacted to introduce a levy that will see government suppliers and contractors pay a levy equivalent to 0.03% of the contract value. And there's a push for 4-day public holiday weekends. Kenyans could have 4-day weekends when public holidays fall on Tuesday on Thursday if a new bill before Senate becomes law. That story there is on page 12, and I believe it just came as a joke from the Senator Karungo Thangwa there, the Senator for Kiambu.
Yeah.
Definitely looking forward to that.
I remember him going to TikTok and actually explaining this, having a whole video of the same,
yes,
and explaining to Kenyans what he really means.
Oh yeah.
It really depends on where you're sitting on this. Well, if you're really, you know, the common mwananchi who is always waiting for the weekend for some sherehe, this one would really you know, work for you. But then again, now even for the business persons, it is going to be intriguing to see how this will play out.
Absolutely. What do we have on the Standard this morning?
Most definitely. Now on the Standard, as you had rightfully put it, goes with Ruto throws Mandago and a bus of a scam. A tough-talking president sends a twin warning to culprits of botched 1.1 billion Kenyan shillings Finland program and the corrupt who misuse public resources, that they will face the music. That story is on page 2 and 6. It gives you a breakdown of some numbers here. Amount 1.1 billion shillings. Amount Jackson Mandago and 3 county officials are accused of conspiring to steal from KCB Bank Eldoret between March 1st, 2021 and September 12th, 2021. 180 witnesses lined up by the DPP to testify against the 4 suspects in the Finland education scandal. 11, these are the charges that Mandago Joseph, Maritim Meshak Rono and Joshua Lelei face. And they have the photos of the 3 top county officials and 56.5 million Kenyan shillings. This is the amount Maritim, Rono and Lelei are accused of stealing from a KCB Bank Eldoret account between June 2021 and September 12th, 2022. From that top strip of the Standard this morning, how DNA from hair shaver gave away terrorist. It is a special report there, page 12 and 13. And Matters Business, pain of tumbling shilling. Matters Sports, it's England versus Spain in Women's World Cup final. I believe that's a World Cup final, basically. I'll just quickly taking a look at that. Yes, it's a Women World Cup final. England book day to Spain in World Cup final. And on the right side of the Standard this morning, Devolution, US envoy wows with investment, investment pitch. And away from that, DP leads talks onslaught amid Mount Kenya fears. And also says man loses 2.3 million shillings property in tussle over child upkeep. That is on the front page of the Standard. You have another one?
I do have Taifa Leo, the Swahili version of the Daily Nation this morning. Top headline there, Mandago is having a field day on headlines this morning. Sakata ya Finland ya chota Mandago. Seneta wa Uasin Gishu ajisalimisha kwa polisi baada ya agizo la kukamatwa kwake kutolewa. Rais Ruto ataka wahusika warudishie watoto pesa. And of course, his arrest came just a few minutes after the president was addressing the residents there as he was heading to Eldoret Sports Club for the Devolution conference. Of course, speaking toughly, they are saying if anyone actually duped those students of their money, they have to pay it. And still on matters on Taifa Leo's, serikali yakubaliana na Raila kuhusu mitumba. Wafanyabiashara wanaongeza mitumba kutoka nje ya wanaagiza mitumba kutoka nje ya nchi wataanza kulipia bidhaa zao ushuru wa juu baada ya waziri Moses Kuria kutangaza mpango wa kuongeza kodi ya nguo hizo kukuu. Hatua hiyo ikitekelezwa basi itakaribia na manifesto ya Azimio la Umoja mwaka jana. it's quite interesting to see the U-turns right now, because this was a big conversation during the election time, as when the Azimio leader then proposed the ban of mitumba.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of backlash from the other side of the Kenya Kwanza faction. And right now we see them doing the same thing. They could argue it's just increasing the taxes, but not totally banning them. But that also has a dire effect on these traders. Vilevile katika gazeti la Taifa Leo, majambazi wamejaa kaunti. Rais asema Ruto hapa kuwafinya wakora wa kiuchumi wanakula mshahara unaozidi wake. Ugatuzi wa timu miaka 10, kongamano lafanyika Eldoret kuadhimisha muongo mzima wa serikali za kaunti. On top strip of the Taifa Leo this morning, Gachagua kutawazwa kigogo wa Mlima Kenya, wazee wa baraza la Gikuyu wapokonya uhuru usemi. Taarifa hiyo kwa kikamilifu katika ukurasa wa 3 wa Taifa Leo hii leo. Na katika spoti, Neymar atua Arabuni kwa shilingi bilioni 15. Al Hilal ya Saudi ya msajili sogora wa PSG kwa kitita cha kuogofia.
To matters business, speaking of the whole kitita in matters sports, to the Business Daily, front page of it, the same headline that the Daily Nation had gone with: lawyers signed pact with the state to report clients' dirty cash. So ACT designates advocates as reporting entities, and stalemate tested condition for $2.34 billion IMF loan. Below the matters education, private varsities hit by new funding model as enrollment drops. Gives you that graph and figures breaking down how government-funded students enrolled in private universities, and also the number of students placed in private universities and funded by the government has sunk to a new low. On the right side of Business Daily, NSSF pays fund managers 619 million shillings fees to June 2022. Basically, the whole state-owned NSSF spent 615.8 million in investment management expenses for the year ending June 2022, with the sum shared among 6 fund managers who oversee the bulk of the fund's portfolio. Above that, Orbit Chemicals cleared to possess Mukuru land, and also how rating agencies push Africa to pay 8 times more on loans. That is on the Business Daily. Take a look
at the Star.
The Star, yes. Before now we cross the borders.
Okay. On the Star, Mandago again. Ghost of Finland scam returns to haunt Mandago. Of course, the DPP approves charges against Senator and 3 of the former county officials. Cornered president disowns allies, says those involved to carry their own cross. Of course, as we earlier stated on our big story, the senator there is expected to be arraigned in court this morning after spending the night in custody at Nakuru Police Station.
And you'll be following up on that.
Yes, definitely. We'll be giving you an update on that throughout the day. And on the Star still, Ruto vows to crack the whip on grafting counties, as he was making his inaugural speech there during the opening of the Devolution conference. PSC moves to streamline civil service hirings. The Public Service Commission has moved to end arbitrary establishment of offices and hiring in the public service in an apparent effort to curb the runaway wage bill. PSC has developed standard human resource management instruments for state corporations and public universities. And on the bottom strip of the Star this morning, police chiefs in Haiti ahead of COP's mission. Top police officers have flown out to Haiti, an assessment mission ahead of the planned deployment of 1,000 Kenyan police officers to combat gang violence that has wreaked havoc at the Caribbean nation. Deputy IG Noor Gabo is leading the team of 10 senior police officers. That is what we have on the Star this morning. Time now, I think, to cross borders.
And actually, even as we cross borders, I remember Cabinet Secretary of Matters of Foreign Affairs, Alfred Muto, hinting on the same, having police chiefs going to Haiti for the whole assessment of this.
Yes.
And even earlier this week, by the way, we did see a number of residents fleeing their homes because of well, the state of security in Haiti. Okay. But now in Uganda, we do have the Daily Monitor for you. And it goes, Museveni orders swamps drained of fishy investors. And just to have a brief on that is, Daily Monitor says not enough. Environmentalists, however, say that presidential orders have to be backed by actual follow-through action, including arrests and prosecution of those who degrade the environment to be effective. You can dig into that story on page 4. And below Daily Monitor, court puts an end to illegal eviction of Bibanja holders. I am not sure what Bibanja is. I really have to read through that paper and see what Bibanja is. On page 7, government fails to recover 130 billion Kenyan shillings, or not Kenyan shillings, but I believe Ugandan shillings, youth funds. Fate of ex-Mulago Hospital boss hangs in the balance. On the top strip of the Daily Monitor, FDC saga. Speaker Among says no to Mafabi sacking of Semuju. And finally, signs your car needs an oil change. Okay, that's on the Daily Monitor. I can quickly take a look at also the Citizen, and then Flo can take a look at bite her tongue with that, the whole Swahili that is there in Mwananchi. Okay. So on the front page of the Citizen this morning, shilling hits all-time low against dollar. So the continuous weakening of the Tanzanian shilling against the dominant but scarce US dollar has reached record levels, with economists pointing to tougher times ahead as the government seeks countermeasures. That is on page 2. So they quote a number there, 240, all right, is it 2,428.7 shillings. The Central Bank of Tanzania is indicative exchange rates as of August 16, 2023, shows the country's shilling has hit a new record low of an average 2,428.7 against the dollar. However, some forex bureaus trade the dollar for as high as 2,600 Tanzanian shillings. Wow. I mean, we were taking a look at, for Kenya, I believe the last time was 150 against the dollar. Yes. For Tanzania, it's a whopping 2,600. Whoa.
In Tanzanian shillings. Yeah. Okay, time to bite my tongue now on that Swahili in Mwananchi this morning. And the headline there, Ngoma bado moto. Ngoma is the name of a person. Serikali ya charuka. Ukweli, waziri Nape pale akisema, ukweli hakuna mtu yeyote aliyekamatwa Tanzania wala atakamatwa kwa kukosoa tu mkataba wa bandari au mradi, mpango au sera yote ya serikali kuhusu jambo hilo. This the whole port story has been a big issue in Tanzania the last few weeks. Yeah. Dola ya pai kivunja rekodi, uhaba tishio. Of course, in Tanzanian shillings there, the dollar rate is now at 2,470 Tanzanian shillings there. Mabalozi kikangoni, Rais Samia washukia kwa kutotekeleza wajibu ipasavyo, huku msomi wa diplomasia akibainisha mahali wanapokwama. And pictured there, Tanzanian ambassadors there, of course, matters accountability and delivering on their mandate. Kesi ya mke bilionia Msuya, mnyukano wa wakili shahidi kuhusu DNA. Na vile vile katika Mwananchi, 9 wasomewa mashtaka 400,000 41 ya kuipa hasara NBC. That is what is making headlines in Tanzania there. The camera person is really having a field day. Laughing at us. We're doing good. We're doing good.
Right, and I believe now we can take a look at the cartoons this morning on the Daily Nation. I was trying to also take a look at, apart from, oh yes, we do have
the People Daily. Yes.
Before we actually cross to the cartoons this morning. On the front page of the People Daily, mixed fortunes for Uhuru's CSs, even as I believe Mwananchi was talking about, Balozi. Now here is matters, CSs. 1 year after elections, Mutahi Ngunyi's recent about turn has rekindled interest into what happened to power brokers who are close to the then President Uhuru and how they are faring. That is on page 2. So to each their own, gives you, what each of them are right now, I believe are doing. For the former CSs, Fred Matiang'i lecturing, Eugene Omala joined opposition, Margaret Coffey lecturing. So it's either, a number of them have either now lecturing, rejoined opposition, or are in consultancy. Away from that, on the top strip of People Daily, Ruto's pledge on devolved roles. We will hand over jobs for counties within 60 days, President says as he officially opens the 8th Devolution Conference in Eldoret. Amid a disquiet among governors over funding. And top there, write off Africa's debts or cut interests, says UN Trade Agency. You can take a look at that on page 16. On the right side of the People Daily, Mandago presents himself to police over scam. And in matters sports, England to face Spain in Women World Cup final. Right, that is on the People Daily this morning. Now to page 15 of the Daily Nation. That is where we have a cartoon this morning. There's a caricature there of that well depicts Ambassador, US to Kenya Ambassador Meg Whitman. It has that briefcase there, Ambassador Meg Whitman Marketing Services. I believe she's even trying to close the door there with a number of caricatures that look like opposition, rather Azimio leaders. There's also the whole press there and caricatures that look like President Ruto, Rigathi Gachagua, and Prime CS Musalia Mudavadi. She basically saying how she does love Kenya, or maybe the US.
She gave a very interesting inaugural speech yesterday at the Devolution Conference. Of course, remember when Mwege was giving that link in the morning, speaking of the whole conversation of the US wanting to know why Kenya,
why Africa, why counties.
Exactly, why Africa, why Kenya, and why the 47 counties. And of course, Meg Whitman there, through her marketing services, she gave a very interesting speech, of course, akipigia debe Kenya, and of course, even speaking to the whole matter that Kenya is the greatest democracy in Africa, and reasons why the West should actually be investing in the country. So it's interesting to see this because, again, it speaks of the whole matters, bilateral ties between Kenya and the US, and also the West are now trying to be in bed with the new administration. Yeah.
Oh yes.
That was quite a significant speech there.
Oh yes, and right now I believe also it matters significant speeches. A significant speech we should be hearing from is FKF. We always take a look at cartoons from Daily Nation and The Standard, and today we'd like us to also take a look at People Daily. Their cartoon this morning on page 10. It goes into matters sports, women's national team, caricature there being, and there's, well, a ball on top of that player, and here she's saying, I can't breathe. There's a leg there on top of it. It matters FKF. And Flo, this is one conversation that has always been ongoing, really supporting not only even by the women's national team, but also even the men's national team.
Yes.
Even last year when we had a whole committee that came into place to really sort out matters of whole football in the country.
Yeah, I think when seeing the CS up and running, I hope this is the time we see a difference when it comes to supporting local teams, not only in sport, in football, but also athletes. Because I remember some years back, must be 20, probably it's last year, when Omanyala was supposed to travel for that marathon, and there's all fiasco of the visas and support from the government. So I hope this is a year or term that we see big support for our local teams, because they fly our flag very high when they go there. Yeah.
And speaking of flying our flags, now to page 14 of the Standard this morning, gives you a caricature there of Cabinet Secretary of Matters Trade that looks like him, Moses Kuria, saying every hustle matters, every business must be respected. Kenyans should consume more of our locally made clothes. Gives you, and rather he's holding a briefcase there, written 25% tax on mitumba. So giving you during the time for campaign and also campaign. And I believe we were actually, leading to that earlier, where you're saying, a whole U-turn. But again, even as they might really be picking a few notes here and there on what Azimio had on the manifesto, I believe it's also healthy to pick a few notes.
Absolutely.
And compare and contrast notes, because at the end of the day, even when you took a look at their manifestos, well, there wasn't much of a difference per se. Well, in matters housing, both factions had their own agendas. So at the end of the day, even with the Kenya Kwanza, they're taking a look at, okay, so this is what you had in your manifesto. We can borrow a few here and there. Yes.
I think I would go with the Standard this morning as well. It also calls for synergy between the government that comes in and also the people who, the first and second runners up when it comes to matters election. Because I believe even with the Kenya Kwanza manifesto, it's not solely perfect, but the things that you can borrow from the Azimio side, the Roots Party leader, because now as we see this conversation on mitumba, it means actually they had a point when they were speaking about the whole mitumba issue during the election period. So it calls for also borrowing in from other presidential candidates and their manifesto. You just pick what is possible and include it in your plans for the Kenyans. Because even the whole issue of 4 days holiday, remember the Roots Party leader Wajakoya saying that people should have work for 4 days or something. So when you see them now trying to push for these bills, it actually tells that these presidential candidates have some of the issues in their manifestos could be borrowed and be used in this government. So I think it also calls for just working together between the government and whoever comes second or third during the presidential elections.
Most definitely. On a lighter note, I believe even, as you say, borrowing, right now the German government is maybe trying to borrow what Roots Party leader was really trying to sell us, the whole bill to legalize cannabis.
For medicinal purposes. And there's a whole story of Komade trending this week.
It's been a really busy week. Then, sorry to cut you short, but then also, I believe on matters mitumba, the real stakeholders even the mitumba traders should really be on the table on such kind of conversations.
Absolutely.
Even as the government really comes forth and talks about having a 25% tax on mitumba, but have they really sat down with the traders?
Yeah.
What are the traders really saying on matters mitumba and the whole import and export of this?
Exactly.
How will this really affect their business?
Yes.
So
I hope they can have like a stakeholders meeting and agree on what works for both the government and both the business persons here, because again, this is a government voted in and bottom-up economic model. So some of these decisions also should include that common mwananchi who is being involved in these matters as far as mitumba taxes are concerned.
Oh, yes. And speaking of taxes, by the way, today, the fact that Azimio leader Raila Odinga will be the chief, rather guest speaker in all the way in the county of Champions, Singishu County. Fred Ndimuli, by the way, is there, standby, and he'll be having a whole conversation with the leader who are actually there. Speaking of matters, 10 years of devolution, we will expect to hear what Azimio leader Raila Odinga will actually be talking about.
True, because it's interesting as been seen since the start of the devolution. It's interesting to also hear from the other side of, that is the opposition side, because even as the government speaks of the achievements that devolution has made, there's also challenges in matters corruption. There's also the issues of health and staffing, the matters equipment, and all these issues need to be addressed even as we speak of the past, present, and the future for devolution. Yeah, so we need to hear from a neutral side. It will be interesting to hear what the Azimio leader has to say about this. Definitely looking forward for that inaugural speech there by Raila Odinga.
And actually, someone who might really have more details on that, I believe, I don't know if Fred Ndimuli is on standby all the way in Eldoret. All right, we'll be crossing over to Eldoret just in a few, but then at this moment, we can take a short break.
Good morning and welcome to this edition of Morning Cafe, coming to you from Eldoret, the city of champions. Yes, we continue the Devolution Conference, the 8th edition. We're here at the Eldoret Sports Club, and this is a venue where this whole event is going on. The conversations here mainly focused on a devolution. The theme of this conference, devolution at 10 years, the present and the future. Now, today we're very privileged to have with us Senator Veronicah Maina. Senator, good morning na karibu sana to TV47.
Good morning. I'm very honored to be here, Fred. Thank you so much for the invitation. Good morning to the viewers. It's my first time on TV47, and I'm excited to be on this space today.
It is good to have you.
Especially when we are looking at devolution.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's something to note, yes, and I think my colleagues Flora Limuki and Stanley Nyaringita back in studio in Nairobi mentioned it, that yesterday night during the gala dinner, TV47 was actually featured, winning the TIE Award at the Devolution Conference, winning for commitment to consistently providing robust, comprehensive, objective, accurate, and focused coverage on devolution in Kenya.
Oh, congratulations.
So you're actually at the right station.
Congratulations. I think that's beautiful, and I wish you all the best as you continue to tussle for space with the very big stations like the Citizen.
Oh yes,
NTV,
we're definitely
Citizen.
growing.
But you're getting there, and I see you going places. So keep winning the awards.
Thank you.
And viewers, thank you for supporting TV47.
Thank you so much, Senator. Now, very interesting conversations around devolution 10 years on. This is the 8th edition of this conference. So yes, definitely a lot of things to look forward to, a lot of things to actually take stock of. Listening to the president's speech yesterday, the issue of corruption really came up. Of course, he promised that in the next 60 days he's going to ensure that all the devolved functions are fully transited to the county governments. But on this issue of corruption, 10 years later, we're in the third cycle of devolution. Is there a way to actually remedy this, or are we just sitting back and saying, well, it is a problem that we face as a country. There's nothing much you can do about it?
I think corruption has been one of those dragons that have ailed this land for a very long time. And I believe it came through people, introduced by people, has been farmed up by people, the culture of the people, and it's the people who will unwind and do it. In fact, if we had very serious oversight from the public on matters corruption, it would be a thing of the past, because it's a decision that an officer, a public officer takes, or an officer takes, a position that I will ride against the tide of corruption to make my space neat around me. I will be accountable for the resources that are let into my hands or under my watch for the benefit of the public and for the benefit of the people. So 10 years later, yes, it is sad that we still talk about corruption having been devolved down to the county governments, wanton destruction and misuse and abuse of resources. It is actually very sad, and maybe some of the people who abuse these positions never think deeply what they are doing. Because if, for instance, you look at a fund that is supposed to deal with, say, medical issues, the health issues of a county, why would anyone want to take money that is designated for malaria fund or malaria control to their own pockets? Do you want to pay school fees with that fund for your children? I don't think so.
Yeah.
If you think deeply as an officer what you're doing with this money, which sometimes get abused or misused or misallocated or misassigned to personal uses, then you will truly come to the same conclusion that the president came to the conclusion yesterday, and very categorically, that you cannot do that to those funds. If it is a public fund, let it remain as a public fund. Myself, during the management of the party affairs,
Yes.
I made sure there were systems and processes which are accountable. Reasonable use of expending funds, when you are expending, there should be reasonable use. So at the point where the source, the funds, the income is streaming into the county, for instance, and at the point where the expenditure is happening, those are the two key control points. And looking at the procurement plans, what is it that you're procurement? Is it value for money? Why don't you deal with it as though you were handling your own resources and become responsible? I remember a while ago I was training under the police reform program with Laikipia University. The police reform program where they were doing a program to sort of change the outlook of how public viewed the police and change the perception that the police were corrupt. And one of the lessons we were tackling, I think it was in the Emali training camp, was whether when an OCS or a police officer is in a station, whether they can ride against the tide of picking funds from public or asking for money from public. And we concluded that it's a personal decision. So Kenyans also must take responsibility on this issue, because if we are talking about misuse of these resources or procurement plans going wrong, who is it that is walking in to make it go wrong? It is not just the officer themselves. There is another person from the private sector who is also undertaking or partaking of these vices. So I think, yes, that is one of the challenges that devolution has faced. And as a country, is a decision we must have. And institutions that pronounce themselves on ethical ways of dealing with business or ethical ways of dealing with life, moral grounds on which people can stand on, must now come out more strongly, support the government, like churches, religious institutions, institutions that are pronouncing ethics, must come out very, very strongly and help Kenyans to get against the tide of corruption so that our index can now shift from how we are rated in terms of how corrupt nations are.
And speaking of funds, because now there's the whole debate and the clamor by county governments for more funding from the central government.
Yes.
And that even the bills that are going through the Senate
Yes.
On revenue allocation,
Yes.
equitable sharing of revenue,
Yes.
even the special fund to some counties. With this issue of corruption and the clamor for more funding, is it really making sense? Because people would assume, okay, fine, if at all you're not even able to manage the little that you have, why ask for more?
Maybe we also cannot overgeneralize and say that everyone is corrupt. It's not everybody who is corrupt. We have people still in those offices who are doing the right thing. In fact, if you could ask me, I think there is a war between two camps. There is a camp that wants to do good, but there is also another camp that wants to self-enrich, maybe with public resources or funding that is taken from people. Now, the clamor for more resources, I would say, is a genuine call. It's a clarion call for more resources to meet the needs of the people. Because the purpose of devolution, first of all, if you look at the principal objectives of devolution, is to make sure that services reach the people. It's bringing services closer to the people as far as it's reasonably practicable. Now, if we do not have enough funding or resources, for instance, for water or for health or for agriculture, there will definitely then be a need to improve those services so that they can become more effective, they can become more robust, they can become more useful to the people who are consuming those services. So the clamor is genuine and the clamor is real, because if you walk across the counties, you will find there is need to pump in more resources. But then comes in the challenge of who is entrusted with utilization of those resources. How are the procurement plans being done? How efficient is that procurement system being done? If you look at the pending bills, is this also not a negative way of managing resources and managing power? Because when, for instance, an outgoing governor procures and leaves spending bills that are unpaid, so that an incoming governor comes in and finds this county is in the negative by $3 billion shillings, which they need to pay to suppliers. Is that prudent management of resources? I would say no. So I think it's more capacity building that needs to be done, more conversations that need to be done on how do we then, as officers or public servants, how do we become better in management of those resources? How do we even allow the public to be part of the conversation on the services that are being rendered in counties? What is our priority in terms of every county? Every county is unique in its very own nature. What is the most, what services should we prioritize in which county? There are counties you will find that prioritizing health, prioritizing tourism, prioritizing agriculture could be what should we be expending on. So if you find such a county, instead of prioritizing on that, they are busy doing something else that is not bringing benefit to majority of the people within that county, then you know there is a problem.
Yeah.
But of course, you must also look at what are the basic needs of a county? The basic needs, and it tags around the basic needs of a human being. If you look also at the SDG Sustainable Development Goals, they are going to point you towards those very basic needs, poverty eradication, hunger, elimination of hunger, water story. You will still see the basic needs are strongly pronounced within the 2030 agenda. You find it pronounced in the SDGs. You find them pronounced in the Constitution under Article 43. So you find that there is a trend that is pronouncing the basic needs, which a county must focus on.
And you mentioned issues to do with capacity. The fact of the matter is politicians don't always make the best managers. And you've worked with politicians at the party level.
Yes.
And you had to work on structures for the party to stand on its own. We've seen other parties which are predominantly run by politicians, and they fizzle out very fast. The same issue could be happening at the devolved units, the issue of capacity. Probably the fact that governors are elected through popular vote, they may not necessarily be the same individuals who would be able to set up proper structures to ensure that the county governments have the capacity. And it's not just about issues of funding, issues of even human resource management.
Yes, there are those many issues because a county, if you look at it, the 47 county governments, they are called county governments because they are like, you know, the way we have Kenya, then you divide it into smaller units. It's a part of Kenya. It's a little country on that part of the world when you say Uasenegisho. This should be taken. If you look at some of the countries like Mauritius, Seychelles, the size of those countries, Uasenegisho will be like twice or thrice the size of Mauritius. So when a governor is elected to head this county, it actually means you're like, should I say a small president of that county? You're like the top boss, but a CEO actually. But that CEO works with what you call the CECs, the government, you know, the executive, and then you have the county assembly. So you have the mirroring of the national down to the county. So what has happened is this. Power has been devolved from being concentrated at the national level. It's devolved downward to give people an opportunity to self-represent, to take charge of their own affairs closer to the people. Now, when you talk about capacity then, when the voter walks into the station, ideally, when you hold a vote, your work is to look at all the candidates who presented their papers, come to compete for that county position as a county governor, and to remember that that county governor will be the top chief executive of that county. Once you realize the top chief executive is supposed to be the one you're giving the vote, it will be wrong for a voter to pick their vote and give an executive officer, a chief executive officer, to a person who does not portend the qualities and the qualifications of one whom you would give your very successful company, corporates like Safaricom or like KCB. If you could not give that person a job as an MD, then you need to think twice, who am I voting in? So the power then, the question goes back to the voter. who did you elect to represent the interests of that county at the very top tier?
On that note, even the political parties should take responsibility, because you actually approve some of these candidates. And,
yes,
and I'm talking to you that way because I know the role
and
you
it's a
played,
good conversation.
Yes.
Yes, political parties should take responsibility, but only to a certain extent. Do you know why? Because we are governed by a legislative, a whole framework, a host of our whole legislative framework, which sets the standard. Our work at the political party is to ensure the person has met the basic criterion under the Political Parties Act, and what you have is the IBC Act, under the Constitution. Once we confirm that the person has met the qualification, it becomes very difficult for us legally to block a candidate. However much I may not think you are a good person, if, for instance, you have presented your papers and you have met that basic criterion as a person who could be elected as a governor, I have no choice as a boss of a political party to sort of now lock you out from the competition. You must allow that competition. That's what democracy is all about, because our constitution is structured around being democratic, allowing people to bring in their leadership, a leadership of their choice. So finally, the voter is actually the boss in selecting who becomes the boss in the county. So for instance, if you bring in a boss or a governor, let's call them a governor in a county, who you know for a fact may most likely reward his friends and his buddies who may not be qualified to hold the CEC positions, what are you expecting from that county? You'll be in trouble from day one. You as a voter, you must come in with a governor who you have confidence, believes in ethical management of the affairs of governance.
Okay.
Constitutional way, constitutionalism in managing the resources, managing decisions, somebody who can help you as a county to move from one level to the next level.
Okay. And I think it's time for us to take a break right now. You're still watching Morning Cafe. When we come back, we'll discuss the role of the political parties. Okay, my director tells me there's no break, so we can continue. The issue of political parties now that we are there, and their role in devolution. Because even looking at the Devolution conference, we do not see political parties represented anywhere. I've gone through the exhibitions. I've gone through, yes, I know.
I signed a book yesterday at, we have a stall here, the UDA party. And I actually signed a visitor's book yesterday, just to make sure that my presence at the stand is acknowledged. So we do have them represented. The UDA is represented. I may not talk of other parties, but when I walked through, I actually saw the president being guided on how membership is being done. For the UDA party. For the UDA party. So we do have representation here. But you're asking an important question. Because even if UDA is represented here, we have a whole host of close to 90 political parties and may not be represented here because I haven't seen many other political parties represented here. And at the root, at the foundation of devolution, you will find the political parties intertwined in that conversation, because the vehicle that brings on board the governance, brings on board the members of county assemblies, brings on board senators, brings on board members of parliament, the whole structure of governance is brought on board by political parties. That is the vehicle, the legal vehicle on which politicians will bounce off in order to now come and push the devolution agenda. So they are important, and I think the conversation you are bringing is now much deeper, because you're asking what responsibilities political parties taking in ensuring that we are getting quality leadership for the nation. Because at the Senate level,
I'm sure political parties actually whip their members to vote in a certain way.
Yes,
yet when it comes to the conversation here about devolution 10 years on,
yes,
we're not seeing them even on the podium.
You're not seeing the
political parties represented on the podium. I've just gone through the program and I'm not seeing, apart from the Azimio leadership, Right Honorable Raila Odinga will be actually addressing the congregation here today.
Yes.
But apart from him and the president, of course, the president came in his own capacity, not as a party
president.
Even the UDA party Are they anywhere on the program to actually discuss
Because
anything?
I think devolution, when you're looking at devolution, the conversation has moved a little further away from the political party because we are not looking at partisan interests so much right now. We are looking at the performance scorecard of other counties, irrespective of the political parties. Because we do have other platforms where political parties can engage in a robust manner, having the political conversation. What we are having right now is a devolution conversation, a conversation that is talking about what is your performance scorecard? How has devolution performed? How is the county government working with the national government, working with the ministries to ensure efficient delivery of services to the people? So I see it in a different way.
Okay.
It's like when you're taking a journey from, say, from Eldoret and you're going to Mombasa. Now, the political parties are here at the beginning of the journey in, say, Wasinigishu or Eldoret. Now, devolution is you notice this is 1 year after governments came into power. So the journey has proceeded and we are somewhere, say, near Nakuru. So that's why you're not seeing political parties, because at the inception of this, when leaders are coming into fore, it is a cycle that keeps moving. Mm-hmm. Now we have moved to year 1. What is the scorecard of the county government? How have they performed? Does the public feel that county governments have efficiently addressed the issues that are assigned to county governments under Schedule 4 of the Constitution? Okay. Have they dealt with health very well? Have they dealt with water very well? Have they dealt with pollution very well? Have they dealt with cultural activities very well? Have they dealt with pre-primary education in a very credible manner? It is that scorecard that is being looked at. Have they been able to meet the needs of the marginalized communities within their county governments? Mm-hmm. Have the principal objectives of devolution been achieved, or are they on course of being achieved? I think one of the remarkable things we must say when we now come to this conversation is the fact that for the first time, we have had disbursement of revenue due to the counties being done in a timely fashion. Mm-hmm. Now, what should that speak? What kind of a conversation does that speak to the county governments? That if the national government has devolved the resources and disbursed on time, it should immediately tell the county government that timeliness has been triggered, efficiency and timeliness has been triggered in payment processes. That means any services that are being rendered to county government should be paid for in a timely fashion. Okay. If there is any support going to the residents within a county and require disbursement, that should be done in a timely fashion. Because can you imagine if, for instance, the national government, when working with the county governments on fertilizer, that fertilizer is sent to the county governments or sent to lower, the county governments are part of it because they are in agriculture. And then the fertilizer is actually found in the stores as opposed to being found with the farmers when farmers are supposed to be in a planting season. Okay. The fertilizer will be given, yes, but if it's not efficiently delivered to the farmers, then it means that fertilizer may not be as useful to the farmers as it would have been if it is brought within time. Okay.
Hold that thought and we'll come back and discuss more to do with the scorecard, 10 years of devolution. What are the hits and the misses? And of course, our question this morning we're asking, and this is linked to the proposed bill by nominated Senator Chimera to bar former governors from seeking senatorial or MP seats, National Assembly seats, for 5 years after serving their full terms. Is a very political discussion. We'll be getting the Senator Veronicah Maina's sentiments on this, plus other issues to do with the devolution. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV47. Do stand by for that.
wish. You didn't mention.
Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Cafe on TV47 with me, Fred Ndimuli. I'm still here with Senator Veronicah Maina, and we're discussing matters devolution. And this has been the discussion this entire week as we continue our special coverage of the Devolution Conference 2023 happening in Eldoret, Uasin Gishu County. The home of champions. We're actually at the Eldoret Sports Club, and this is a venue of the event. Remember, today among the keynote speakers will be the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, the leader Azimio One Kenya Coalition. He'll be addressing the congregation. In a minute, I'll tell you what the theme, the sub-theme of the day is. It has to do with the technology, information and technology. So the CS for ICT, Eliud Owalo, will also be among those people addressing this congregation. Senator, before we go to my colleague William Mwege, who's around just checking out the preparations for the day, on our question of the day, there's that proposal by Senator Chimera, your colleague in the Senate, about barring individuals who've served as county governors from vying for either senatorial positions or positions in the National Assembly for at least 5 years after they leave office. What would be the rationale, and what is your thinking about that?
I think the rationale, first of all, is that maybe because of the functions that has been given to the Senate under the Constitution, we have an oversight role over the counties. And oversight means that you look at the performance of the counties in terms of service delivery, in terms of utilization of funds, in terms of how well they are representing the interests of the people of that county, what kind of projects are they doing, are they relevant to the people? It's a whole host of an oversight role. And you will find committees like Peak and Pack are some of those committees that will interrogate audits, accounts, when papers are laid in Parliament, in Senate, giving the accounts of how a county has utilized the funds. You'll find that that is the role of the senators. So when a governor who has been immediately prior to his end of office then takes over as a senator in the county, then you have what you would call maybe a conflict of interest. Because, for instance, assume that senator is appointed to Peak or Pack. Once they are appointed into those committees, then they bring the audit reports of that county, and they call for substantiation of things that were done in that county 5 years before. How do you think that senator will judge or make decisions regarding whether utilization of those funds was correct or not correct, or if there is a scandal, what happened in that scandal? You definitely have a conflict of interest there, and it's immediate.
Yes.
So maybe then the bill looks at whether the law left a gap when it did not define whether such a governor should be allowed to transcend into Senate. And we have quite a few who have now joined Senate.
Do we have, for instance,
have several.
Do we have, for instance, any instance where a former governor has been summoned by the Senate to explain? Because audit reports usually come after the fact. Yes. Someone has already left office and an audit report is conducted.
You know, Senate would have a right to interrogate those accounts and even summon them to come and give an account of what happened before. So that bill then, I would think that's the thinking of my colleague, Senator Chimera, that we need to tidy up legislatively to make sure that you give us space to ensure proper accountability of any function that a governor undertakes. Now, if you look at how IEBC commissioners are how the rules are structured around IEBC commissioners taking their functions at the IEBC, you will notice that they are normally barred after they leave office.
Yes.
Like a commissioner cannot go to vie tomorrow because it is assumed that that commissioner once they exit the IEBC, they understand the whole system. They know the people who are running that system. And maybe there could be a possibility that a bad person or a bad commissioner or an unethical commissioner could misuse that system if they vie. And that means they would have an unparalleled advantage against other candidates. If they competed 10 of them and one of them is a former commissioner, then this one who worked with IBC will have very unparalleled advantage over and against other candidates. I think that is the kind of thinking that is around that. And maybe when you look at governance, good governance, corporate governance, it would be okay. It would be okay. But it's a conversation that Kenyans need to have. That how accountable do you want a governor who's been in charge of billions of shillings after the exit office? How do you want that governor to come back into other offices? Would you like them to come back immediately? Do you think we have processes? Do you think we have systems that would ensure that the checks and balances would ensure by the time they are leaving office, they don't have any queries or they have answered all the queries that would have been asked to that county government? Okay. I think it takes us back to the conversation of how strong are our checks and balances of the services and utilization of the resources that are being sent to the counties. Yet
it would also raise some fundamental issues, constitutional issues, about denying someone the right to political association to run for political office.
Yes, and that's why the conversation needs to be had, because rights are there, but rights may not be absolute. But there are some rights which are so fundamental and so key. They are called the first generation of rights. Those are the political, civil and political rights. Those are first generation rights. Now, in those first generation of rights, you'll find the Bill of Rights. Our representation will be one of them. It's very cardinal, it's very crucial, it's very key. Article 38 of the Constitution, you speak into it. There are rights that should never be abrogated. They should be allowed to be enjoyed unless they are traversing into other people's rights. So you look at them and you look at the balance. Where does the balance of rights interest tilt towards? Where is it more advantageous? Is anyone going to suffer so much damage if you allow that right to continue being advanced to a very big extent? And under what circumstances do you then limit those rights? And so when the conversation has begun, I think it's a good thing, because you see, devolution must continue to grow until we get the final best product that is good for the Kenyans. Then we can truly say that our devolution at 10 years is still not at the baby stage. Yesterday, I saw something being circulated on social media. Devolution, a small kid, and I can only imagine those are the people who are anti-devolution, who did that. It was a cartoon. A small baby was holding a bottle, suckling on milk, and they were calling the bottle was being told it's like the baby and the bottle were the devolution. They were saying, and people were watching and clapping, and I was saying, maybe, I don't know why the person did that. Do they think we have not grown in devolution? Are we still at infant stage, or have we made any strides? In my very own opinion, I think devolution has brought government closer to the people. It has brought decisions closer to the people. You have better representation. We have a conversation now, even with persons with disability. Minorities have come out. You have seen the Torobek community has done a petition and has done many steps towards affirming the rights of that community, the Ogiek community, many minority communities. We can now talk about communities or peoples that we never spoke about before. And even on the women, the gender representation. You will find, as part of devolution, if you look at from Articles 174 to Articles 200, you will find that when county governments are doing their CECs, they are appointing their CECs, or county assemblies are having their membership, there is the principle of gender specifically put against the county government to ensure women are truly represented.
And that is a very controversial.
At the very lowest level.
We will come to discuss
and
that
decisions
issue.
Now, and representation for women by women must truly be genuine, not just putting women there and then making sure that they are not efficient in representation.
Okay.
That representation must be qualitative,
Hold that
not
thought,
just
Senator.
quantitative.
That's the question when it comes to representation and the space for women in devolution. Is it just pure nomination for the sake of it? I will be discussing that shortly. For now, let us join my colleague William Moige. He's somewhere around here at the Eldoret Sports Club, giving us a feel of the activities and what to expect today. And we'll come back to discuss the hits and misses as well as the space of women in devolution with Senator Veronicah Maina. Over to you, William.
Thank you, Fred. On the other side of the Eldoret Sports Club, we are here on standby. But for now, I just want to quickly take you through today's program. Remember, it is day 2 of talks and stakeholders meeting and panelist discussion. But it is day 3 of the Devolution Conference, which commenced on Tuesday but officially opened by President William Ruto yesterday. That is on Wednesday. Quite some discussions. President William Ruto committing to the transfer of the remaining county functions, that is at least 10% to the county governments in the next 60 days. But today also a lot will be happening here. We're expecting former Premier, that is Raila Amolo Odinga, who also doubles up as the Azimio leader, Raila Odinga, to be here. Remember, he is among key leaders who in the previous years, in the 2005 champion for devolution. 10 years on, we want to hear from him today on what he's going to say on the state of devolution. Maybe the gains, maybe the challenges, and maybe also from where he sits as one of the key leaders of the nation, what are the proposals that he will be tabling on the way forward of devolution. But quickly, Fred, for the sake of our viewers, maybe quickly take you through on today's program. We are expecting quite a number of high delegation and stakeholders to be discussing matters devolution, and today key will be matters digital economy and integration of technology. That is devolved sectors for the economic development. This is quite an important discussion. Remember, also in this particular forum, we are expecting that governors, stakeholders to be talking matters, the digital, the development goals, that is the SDGs as of the year 2030. And this particular discussion, matters digital economy, is going to be key and quite an important discussion for each and everyone attending this particular conference. Part of the panelists, we are expecting Governor Wesley Rotich, who is the chairperson, Council of Governors, ICT and Knowledge Management. We're also expecting Mr. Eliud Awalo, who is the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Information, Communication and the Digital Economy. We're also expecting Senator Alan Chesang, who is the chairperson in the Senate Standing Committee on ICT, to be present as one of the panelists. We have Cynthia Kropak, Chief Enterprise Business Officer, Safaricom PLC. There is Hamisi Williams, Assistant Food and Agriculture Organization, that is FAO. We also have Ezra Chiloba, who is the Digital Director General Communications Authority. This particular panelist will be moderated by the Ambassador of the European Union to Kenya, that is Henrietta Geiger, who will be part of the moderators. But later in the afternoon, quite a very important discussion will be taking place. Resourcing devolution for service delivery. Remember, yesterday President William Ruto did send a warning to government officials and officers, decrying that there is wanton corruption in the government, not only in the national government but also in the county government, something that has hampered effective delivery to Mwananchi, warning that his government, the Kenya Kwanza government, will not tolerate this, and he will set the balls rolling to ensure that relevant authorities, that is including the investigative bodies, DCI, EACC, will roll out and ensure any person who is allegedly involved in any graft matters is apprehended and brought to book, because this is a vice that he noted is deeply enrooted within the Kenya public service and needs to be dealt with. So also in the afternoon we'll be having these discussions, which is quite important. remember one of the important discussions that we had from the president and also the council of governors, that is Anne Waiguru, also the Kirinyaga governor, is matters funding to the county government. Currently we're having a big reliability, or rather dependency, of the county governments depending on the national treasury to fund their projects and also their wages. But we had the Senate Speaker, that is Amason Kingi, and also Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi, challenging all governors to come up with ways in which they can effectively raise revenue measures. This is one of the critical discussions that will be taking place today, and we will see 10 years on why are county governments still relying on the national government to fund their projects, to fund their recurrent expenditure. Quite an important discussion. And on this, the panelists will be led by Governor FCPA Fernandez Barasa, that is the chairperson, and also Council of Governors Finance, Planning and Economic Affairs Committee. Also, you remember Fernandez Barasa is the governor for Kakamega, if I'm not wrong on that. That has kept my mind. Also, we have Governor Cecily Mbarire from Embu, who will be part of this particular discussion. We have the Cabinet Secretary Treasury, Professor Njuguna Ndongo, who will be part of this discussion. Ndindi Nyoro, Member of Parliament from Kiharo, who also doubles up as the chairperson of the National Assembly Budget and Appropriation Committee. It will be interesting to be following up on this conversation because funding has been a critical issue in the devolved unit, albeit matters corruption and graft still being reported in a number of counties. But before I take it back to you, it is important because we have been talking about for the better part of yesterday, today. It is a matter that is going to be discussed for the benefit of our viewer here on TV47. It is very important to highlight what are these devolved functions and what are the remaining devolved functions that are yet to be transferred to the county governments, or rather to the devolved unit. And quickly, I will go through the Article 186 of the Constitution, which states the functions of county governments in Kenya. And this is the fourth schedule of the Constitution, the 2010 Constitution, whereby one among the devolved functions performed by county governments are among them agriculture. You saw yesterday Governor for Kirinyaga, Anne Waiguru, really applauding the huge steps that have been taken by devolved units in matters agriculture. And this is one of the functions that has been devolved to county governments, including in agriculture, there are functions of crop and animal husbandry, livestock sale yard, and also we have slaughterhouses. This is managed by the county government. Also, we have another function which is very critical to you, Mwananchi, and something that has really made huge strides under the functioning of the county government, but also has been faced with equal challenges. That is county health services. County health services. You remember some of the governors mentioning right now, even in the remote areas, they can manage even to do surgeries, something that has not been happening earlier before. And even a delivery of babies has been done safely, something that was quite a challenging bit in the earlier days. 10 years of devolution, this has really improved. And this is one of the functions under county government. But there has been a pull and push between the Ministry of Health and the county government, talking matters payment of health workers, matters drugs, matters management of hospitals. This has been really challenging, and on this particular matter, it is something that we are expecting to be ironed out in this particular forum. And also we have the control of air pollution, noise pollution, other public nuisances and outdoor advertisement. But also in the national government we have the NEMA, which has been controlling this particular issue. So this matter we are expecting in the next 60 days will be analyzed and fully transferred to the county, or rather the the devolved units. We have cultural activities, public entertainment, and public amenities. It is an issue under the watch, or rather the management under the county government. We have county transport, including county roads, which is under class D, E, and unclassified roads. Remember, we have the Kenha, which is also managing the national highways. So that particular sector is divided between the national government and the county government. But the county government, under the Constitution, Article 186, the fourth schedule, they have been given classes of roads which they are supposed to manage. Also, we have animal control and welfare. Quickly, let me go through these. Other than that, we have trade development and regulation that include trade licensing. You remember, if you want licensing for if you're a bar owner, hotel owner, you need to get this from the county government. We have county planning and development. We also have education, but for education, it is so specific. The pre-primary education, that is ECDE, right? Also, we have village polytechnics is under the county government. Also, we have implementation of county public works and services. We have firefighting services and disaster management. This is under county government. We have control of drugs. We have also ensuring coordinating and participation of communities and local locations in governance at the local level. 14 functions, but we are having a remainder of 10% out of the functions that the Constitution has availed, or rather has assigned the devolved units to take over. And this, as promised by President William Ruto, will happen in the next 60 days. Quickly now, you're up to date on some of the functions that are supposed to be performed by the county government. 14 of them. There you have it. And this discussion is still going to be happening here, and we'll be bringing you more details on what will be happening here at the Eldoret Sports Club. Over to you, Fred, on the other side of this particular facility.
Thank you so much, William Moige, just taking us through the program for the day. And it promises to be a very interesting day. The sun is already coming out, and it's a bit warmer today. There was a bit of rain last night, so it's a bit warmer this morning. We're still here with Senator Veronicah Maina discussing issues to do with devolution. And just before we went for that interlude, we were discussing issues to do with women representation. Now, it is a key discussion. Of course, even at the national level, the two-thirds gender representation, even at the National Assembly, it has always been a problem. At the Senate as well, despite the nominations. Now, when it comes to devolution, county assemblies at least have managed to do that. Yes. But the question is, are we getting quality through the kind of remedy that we adopted at the county level?
Yes, we are. And maybe to a certain extent, maybe not. It's a yes and no answer. And why is it not clear? Because first, women are an integral part of devolution. In fact, if you look how the devolved government is set out under the Constitution, it makes women very pertinent to the integral design of devolution. Now, they are mainstreamed within devolution process such that a county assembly cannot hold over two-thirds of its membership being of the same gender. It must involve the other gender, so that if you have, for instance, men being over two-thirds, you must make sure the top-up, representation top-up of the women, make sure that that equation balances a two-thirds against a third. So in terms of quantity, yes, you can have the third. But when now you come to the quality of their participation within that county assembly, you now go down to, do those women who have been brought to those county assemblies have powers to make decisions to the best interests, for the best interests of the people of that county? And I think that's where the ball is being dropped, because women will be nominated into the county assemblies, but they are so cowed. They are so cowed, and they are intimidated to a point that even their making of their decision becomes very difficult. We've had a very difficult trend in some of the counties, unfortunately, where what has happened is that women, even when they are supposed to be part of committees, central committees within the county assembly, are being removed from committees because of having opinions which may not align with certain people. And sometimes those opinions are to the best interests of the people. So in terms of the quality, yes, there are some that have allowed the nominated gender quota or women and marginalized representation or youths to truly be an integral part of the decision-making processes. Others have made sure that in spite of that voice having been brought to those assemblies, they have been quietened, yes, which is then amiss. It will be amiss if you shut down the voice of a representative who is included into the equation through constitutional means. It is amiss. And it will not give you the wholesome picture of how that decision is supposed to be made.
Whatever you said would take us back to the conversation about political parties and where they come in. Yeah. They are the ones that make these nominations. Yeah. They know the quality of leaders they nominate, yeah, to these positions. They know the capacity, yes, to actually withhold political pressure. Yes. Don't you think that probably that is where the political parties could be failing?
Once again, there is no clear answer for that, but it's a yes and no. Because sometimes the criteria for nomination is not very clear. The framework is not very clear. It's very open. Yes. And open means exactly that. It is open. But I have seen now a good practice being formed about who the women who are being nominated. What is the criterion for nomination? Do we include people from all communities? Are we looking at people who have merit for that nomination? Have they participated in the political processes of that political party? And that once again now pushes the ball back to women, that they must get interested in the political space, not be afraid of it, or not be intimidated to a point that they don't come out to be part of the conversation or to be part of the politics of the day. Why am I saying that? Because you see, both genders have their strong points and their weak points. When you have women in the equation, it makes for a very good case of not just inclusion, but merit. And it makes for a case of bringing in more qualities which the men may not have, by the way. For instance, in warring communities, in conflict communities, did you know women can foster so much peace, so much reconciliation, so much harmony? So when you leave them as part of the decision makers or people who are having conversations, you have left a very integral part. The one person who can quickly be telling people, let's not fight this way. Our children will suffer. Let's not go violent. Let's not go physical. This is not going to work. Our farms are going to have trouble. Let's not go that direction. So myself, I think sometimes women have been seen as though they are being included just because they are women. But that's not it. We are bringing merit. We are bringing quality to the table. We are bringing very strong work ethic. Mm-hmm. Women have very strong work ethics, yeah, by the way. Yeah. They run institutions. A woman can turn a very small seed into a whole estate, into a whole entity. But when the partner they are having around does not see that dimension, but sees the narrow scope of how wanawake wanashida conference wakisema waongezewe viti, mm-hmm, then it becomes a very retrogressive way of looking at it. If you look at countries like Norway, Europe, where women have been given space, you find it is normal to have a woman as a prime minister. It's normal to have a woman ascend to the highest office. And we must, in Africa, reach that conversation. Look at performers like President Suluhu, mm-hmm, and say that, yes, actually, the country will continue, the country can progress, even when women are part of the leadership.
Senator, you'll forgive me for this because I'll keep on insisting on the role of the political parties when it comes to this issue, especially on the two-thirds gender rule. Because, yes, affirmative action may work for a while, and for the 10 years of devolution, it has worked. But is it sustainable? There are those who argue that political parties have the opportunity to actually ensure that within their ranks, within their systems, they actually churn out more elected leaders with a proper balance across the genders, not just men, because even the selection of a deputy governor is a political selection, even the selection of a deputy president, a running mate for that matter. The role of political parties, I cannot insist. I don't know what you have to say.
You see, political parties tend to, they follow what the people are saying a lot of times. Because if your win is based on a vote, then you may as well be with the public and you may as well be with the masses. And now when you come to the people, the cultural beliefs, the gender stereotype, when you come to election of women, if you look at the obstacles that are holding women back from competing competitively in competitive politics, there are many factors. It goes back to that campaign, who is financing it? That campaign, what are the perception of the people around the, say, county or constituency? Do they believe, does that community believe in women being leaders at that top level?
It is costly.
I am saying there are many factors that intertwine before a woman leader is effectively lifted from, a woman leader is picked from the grassroots and allowed to occupy a political office. And I will ask you to look at trends in certain counties. And please, you just know how I love the Kisii people, the Kisii County. It has never voted one woman. Kisii County has never voted in one woman in a single constituency. And I have profound respect for them. But the conversation needs to be done. Why can't a woman in Kisii County ascend to a constituency level, become a member of parliament in Nyaribari Chache or whatever other constituency that is within Kisii? Why can't we have that? And that is may not be the only county. There are several other counties where you find the trend is that it is easier for a woman to ascend in a single constituency in this county than in that county. How do you explain that? It means if you have a woman candidate there, unless there is such radical shift, a paradigm shift on the belief system of the people when it comes to representation, it becomes much more difficult for a woman to ascend to power. Because if you look at our percentages now, representation of women is maybe close to 24.2% of women representative, meaning we still need to fill in a gender quota to meet the constitutional stipulation. And that's why that conversation is being had, that how do we now push more women to elective positions so that we can have incremental growth in representation by all genders. And not just women, the same story goes to youth, but Kenyans seem to be now shifting and actually preferring to take a lot of youths as part of leadership. So I think for the youths, there is a brighter day which is coming. And I hope that brighter day doesn't just come for the youth, it comes for the youth, it comes for the women, it comes for minorities, marginalized communities, so that even when a person, if they possess good qualities of a leader, can still ascend in spite of the fact that they don't belong to a certain ethnic community. And you see that is also the conversation the president has been having when you look at how certain communities have been having a voting pattern, especially on the presidency. When the president visited Mount Kenya region just the other day on the 5-day tour, he was very pronounced on the fact that Mount Kenya had now broken that belief that people held that they would not vote in a person who is not from their community to a level of presidency. Those are the scripts we need to be reading across many communities, across many counties, so that we can progressively say that as a Kenyan nation, we are leading Africa in terms of being very democratic, very pronounced, allowing meritorious leadership. And that meritorious leadership is actually also going to speak into issues of corruption. The more we allow merit on the table, the less we will have on issues and vices that then come to dim the light that devolution has lit.
And even when we are now looking at the scorecard or assessing the progress in devolution, it is key that we don't just look at the county governments and the county assemblies. The Senate is also key. So the Senate is also marking 10 years of devolution. Yes. The whole notion of devolution is why we have the Senate there in the first place.
Yes.
Yet the relationship between the Senate and the county administration has been, let's say, not as desirable as we would have wished. And questions arise. What is the remedy for that relationship? Because yes, all these things are about relationships. To remedy the relationship between county administration and the Senate.
You see, the very function of the Senate is oversight over county governments. Oversight in terms of you oversight how they expend their resources. We oversight of division of that revenue. We oversight so that at the initial stage, we do the division of revenue bill act, and then resources are sent to the county, and then senators are supposed to follow through with the governance to see whether those resources have been utilized in line with budgets, in line with what was pronounced by the counties from the executive on how those resources are going to be done, are going to be utilized. So you find friction somewhere the day the senator in a certain county then says this governor is wasting resources. They are supposed to be doing water. They are busy doing something else, which is not useful to the residents of the county. So the bittersweet relationship, I don't see it going completely, because the pick and pack committees in Senate are the ones that now call every officer into account of what they have done. Is that important? It's very important, because there needs to be somebody who looks and says, even after we have collected taxes and the services are supposed to be delivered efficiently to the people, someone must look and say, I give you 5 out of 10, or I give you 4 out of 10. Now, if a governor is given 4 out of 10 or 3 out of 10, do you think they're going to be smiling with the senator? They will not.
Okay.
So there are those where you say, yes, it is deserving that they have to be called out, and somebody has to stand in and call them out. But also, there is also the part that senator-governor relationship can have a lot of politics of fujo.
Yes.
Fujo is where, even when there is no basis for that opposition, it is just political competition causing people to fight in a county. So that you will find that fight is now not based on this one doing their job very well. It is based on factors extraneous to the real function that is set by the Constitution. Now, when it is based on fujo, fitina, madharau, then that is where now it becomes real bad. And that is the one that needs to be not accepted or contained, because that's not what the Constitution envisaged. So I would say, yes, you must be in a working relationship with your senator as a governor, working to the extent that it is helping that devolution to work.
Okay. Now let's go to the nitty-gritties of devolution. And of course, the much talked about devolved functions. The one that has really dominated the headlines has been the devolution of the health services. Health workers ever on strike, health workers demanding this or the other. We've seen quite, and it's progressive and it should be lauded, the fact that most counties have actually erected brick and mortar in as far as health services are concerned. But when it comes to the health workforce, there is a disconnect. There are those who say that the biggest challenge for county governments right now is human resource management.
Yes.
The fact that they do not have the capacity to handle the human resource. Is there any way that the Senate can come in to assist in as you defend devolution?
I don't know whether it's capacity which is lacking in management of the human resource, but definitely there are challenges there. And you will find this challenge when, and I must commend doctors because the medical fraternity took a very long time before they ever went to the streets to strike or demonstrate because of the services. Now, when you look at the workforces in the county, you must ask yourself, overall, how are they managing their human resource? Do they have capacity to manage other sections of human resource? Because it cannot only be one side which is not properly managed. Though doctors are in a very special category because they offer services, health services, medical services that are supposed to run not for the normal 8 hours. It is a 24-hour round-the-clock service. Now, when you manage resource that is running clocking a 24-hour shift, when other resources are clocking 8, it means when you do the remuneration for those, that human capital that is taking a 24-hour shift, you must be able to assign a budget that is sufficient to cater for their needs. Look at how do you make it a little bit more easier for them to carry out the function. It's a life-saving function because this goes to ensure that the health of the citizens in that county is well taken care of. Then you must manage them in a way that that does not become a conversation every day, because what you need from their desk is output. You don't want, as a governor, to be discussing a salary with a doctor when that doctor is supposed to be listening to the patient.
Yes.
You look like the management is completely off. And that's why it should be done professionally. The budgets that are supposed to run for health services must always be dispersed in a timely fashion. It should be like not a conversation. And the terms must be such that both parties are comfortable with the terms that are negotiated. Because if you look at what the doctors are complaining about, or the staff, medical staff are complaining about, they'll say, oh, we haven't been paid for 2 months. Yes. Have I heard that? I think I have heard that in some counties. Or we haven't been paid for this. So that by the time the person is saying, we haven't been paid for 3 months for a critical service, it becomes very difficult. And then the services that are being rendered there, do you have the appliances, the equipment? Yes. Do you have the facilities that are needed within that physical structure called a hospital to be able to deliver the service to the people?
The county governments appear to be doing very well in working on the infrastructure. It's the human resource that's a problem. Would we be diluting devolution if at all we took out...
If you look at the conversation...
If we took out the human resource management, especially for
the doctors.
Yes, for health workers in general.
The only reason that that factor would be taken out is if it became so chaotic that you can no longer render services, they have lost confidence completely.
Even for issues of standardization across all the 47
Yes,
counties.
one of the very worrying things has been training a doctor for a nation. It takes over 7 years. Over 7 years of state resources being directed on one person to become a doctor. It then becomes really sad if you now have a mass exodus of those doctors to another nation and leaving the Kenyan without the doctors that they so much need. I believe what should be done is that it should be stabilized. If it is so unstable, then it means another factor which is higher has to come in to stabilize the sector so that the services can be rendered to the people. And so that the conversation every day is not their paperwork.
Yes.
Because you can imagine a nation without doctors and without medical facilities.
Would that not be judged as diluting devolution? Because it has already been devolved, the entire function, including the human resource management.
I think
if we were to take out anything at this point.
I I think it's the way you look at it, because if it's a perennial problem, then a solution needs to be done.
It has been the constant conversation.
Yes, it has been a constant conversation. And that is why, because if you're trying to find a solution in the same way that you've been trying and you're not getting a solution, then you upscale.
Okay.
You say, okay, can we then even have this on an interim basis to say, let's stabilize this factor? Because it's the same story with insecurity. What happens if you find there's so much insecurity in one part of the country? You find scaled up operations at every point to make sure you can control this story. So for me, I would say it's maybe trying to make sure that we bandage the wounds and make sure that it's operationalized fully so that the doctors don't have that conversation every day. I usually find it very inappropriate that they have to keep repeating the same and repeating the same, and solutions are not being found. That means there is a problem. I don't think it's correct that we can hold doctors within counties saying we are not paying doctors, and this is the worker you are saying should work 24 hours. When we call them after 8 hours, you still expect them to come and save lives. We have to be reasonable with the terms of service for a workforce, like in the health sector.
As we come to the end of the conversation this morning, the whole conversation happening at the national stage, with the talks happening at Bomas between Kenya Kwanza and Azimio, and some of the discussions, especially in the two-thirds gender rule, are matters to do with the constitution. And this is from your assessment. Do you feel that we are actually looking into a possible relook at the constitution? The fact that even as we mark 10 years of devolution, this is the 13th year since we promulgated the constitution, also happening this August.
Yes.
Some of the agenda already even proposed by the president himself could require a relook, not just at the simple legislation, but at the constitution. Do you think it is high time?
It is, and it is okay to do that, because it's a document made by the people for the people. At the point of inception, it was presented as a proposal, and then it became the document, the Grundnorm. What we call the Grundnorm, it's the constitution is a basis of law, is a basis of how our society is organized. And there is I don't think there is any problem with that being relooked, and any gap that has been identified in its operationalizing being sealed. Those are conversations we should be having. But the problem is they get so politicized, so they are political conversations, such that they become as though amending a constitution is like bringing the sky down. No, it is not. It's a document that was done by the people for people's representation. And if anything has not worked the way it was envisaged to work, it is high time we looked at it and said, I think on this matter, we can have a conversation around it. So it's not a sin to look at the conversation and even propose amendments. In fact, the work of legislators all the time is to consider legislative proposals, legislative amendments, and if it doesn't meet the thresholds of popularity, it will be defeated on the floor of the House. If it means the threshold, it will be allowed. And if it needs a referendum, the Kenyans would vote on it. Okay. So what I would think myself is that we shouldn't make a conversation around a constitution appear as though it is illegal or unlawful. No, it's not unlawful. It's okay to look at two-thirds gender rule. In fact, for women, if you listen to women from across the political divide, this story of gender finally needs to be sorted so that we don't just tell people gender empowerment, and yet we haven't done concrete steps to ensure that we meet the constitutional threshold.
Okay, final words.
My final word is devolution is here to work for you as Kenyan. It should bring services close to the people. It should make you an integral part of the design to grow economic and social development. So we are here in Eldoret to make sure that this devolution is working in your county and that your life becomes a little bit more better and your livelihoods become more transformed than they have been. Asante sana.
Thank you so much, Senator Veronicah Maina. Yes, devolution is a conversation going on this entire week here in Eldoret at the Eldoret Sports Club as we continue with our special coverage of Devolution Conference 2023. Thank you so much for agreeing to this interview and for your much considered thoughts on devolution. For now, we take you back to my colleagues in Nairobi. Remember, this whole day will be here as well, and we'll be bringing you updates on what is happening here. Back to you, Flora and Nyaringita. Good morning.